Welcome to our webinar on connecting with consumers around the world through market research, online communities, or consumer consulting boards like we call them. This is a webinar by myself. I'm Tom, and I'm the head of research communities at InSites Consulting, and my colleague Niels Schillewaert, who will present a case on IKEA in the second bit of this webinar. And Niels is managing partner of InSites Consulting and also one of the co-founders. But let's start with my presentation. My presentation is titled Universal Brands, and it's a presentation on how you can make international or global brands locally relevant in different markets around the world by connecting with consumers, by qualitative research, by doing or running market research online communities. But let's first say hello to a brave new world. Why do we live in a brave new world? Well, because we are witnessing a true gravitational shift. At this very moment, a couple of things are changing on three different levels. First of all, where the economic growth comes from. Secondly, the lifestyle of the global population, and thirdly, the age structure of the population of the world. So let's take a closer look at those three elements. First of all, we see that the economic growth is shifting from developed markets towards new and emerging markets. A couple of numbers. By 2020, the collective GDP of the developed markets will be overclassed by the collective GDP of the new and emerging markets. And it's not something that will happen in the future. It's actually already happening right now. If you look at P&G and Unilever, they already make more than half of their turnover in emerging markets. And a couple of weeks ago, I was at the global HQ of Barilla, the Italian pasta maker. They want to double the company by 2020, and so in 7 years time, and they want to do that merely by growing in those new and emerging markets. So the question is, why all of a sudden are those markets booming? Well, we can give an explanation for that by looking at the two other things I just mentioned. First of all, we see that in those markets, people are looking for wealth in the cities. They are looking for a job in the cities, and for the first time in the history of mankind, more than 50% of the world's population now lives in cities. Second thing is that the world has never been younger than before. 1 out of 3 in the world is now younger than 30 years old, is part of Generation Y, and in those new and emerging markets, it's even more than 50% of them. And it are those two final elements that really make that those markets are really booming, are really growing. It's that young urban kind of middle class that is growing, and it is really the engine behind those fast growing economies in Latin America, in Eastern Europe, in Asia, Southeast Asia, especially next to India and China, and also in the southern part of Africa. And in South Africa, they really have a beautiful name for that young, emerging, urban middle class, that black growing middle class. They call them black diamonds, and I think it's a nice illustration of the kind of value they have in them. If you look at all the opportunities that lie in those new markets, you might think that in a world merely populated by young citizens who are more and more connected to the web, global brands with their global appeal and potential global scale are in pole position to grasp all the new opportunities. The question is that really true? Well, if we look at our social media around the world study, we might think that it is like that. In that study, we measure social media behavior on a global scale, and one of the figures that are really interesting in there is that more than 50% of the online population in the world is connected to brands in one way or another. So it seems indeed that online and the fact that we have a young Gen Y population makes that brands can build global brand tribes, and that they to some extent are in pole position due to the fact that they have strong global brands with a global appeal. So global brands for the win? Yes and no, because a lot of those strong brands have entered those new markets to grasp the opportunities over there and have failed big time. An example of a company that has learned it the hard way, that is doing well right now, but that really learned quite a lot in the past couple of years, is McDonald's. When they started in India with their, let's say, global offering, their American Western product offering, they were not successful at all. But over the years, they have changed a couple of things. First of all, they worked on their product offering. They started to offer a vegetarian option, which is pretty logic in India, of course, and tried to make the food slightly spicier. But that was not enough. Indian people want to see how the food is prepared because merely due to religious reasons, some people don't eat certain products and they want to see how the burgers are prepared. So in the West, it are closed kitchens. In India, they changed the design of the restaurants and now it are open kitchens. So everybody can see what's in the burger and how it's prepared. Some other things they did, and that really caused the breakthrough, is they started to offer products at a lower entry price point. They started with budget menus to get new people in and to let people try, let's say, the product offering. And the final thing they did was repositioning the brand towards a family brand, the restaurant towards a family restaurant, where as parents you have great times and joyful moments with your kids. So I think this example really shows that when you want to be successful in those new markets, yes, you need that global appeal, yes, you need that potential global scale, but on the other hand, you also need to localize. And you not only need to localize your product offering, you almost need to rethink your whole marketing mix. So that's the first element. We talked about this with senior executives from different global brands like Heinz, Heineken, MasterCard, PepsiCo, and we asked them the same question: how to be successful in those new markets? And they all said the same. Well, it's the ideal, finding the ideal balance between the global and the local aspect. Secondly, what they also said, it's not only about trying to understand those new markets, we also need to understand what is happening in our home markets, in the mature markets. We need a deeper understanding of consumers over there in North America, in Western Europe, in order to defend what we already have built and in order to fight the status quo. So it's not only emerging markets that we need to know better, it's also the existing markets in developed nations. And the third aspect was, well, guys, you're already around in most of those new markets for more than a decade. Why all of a sudden is it more important to understand consumers in those new and emerging markets? And merely they all said the same. Yes, we are already active there for sometimes more than a decade, but up till now it all went pretty well and pretty okay. But we feel that if we really want to grow, if we really want to grow fast, we really need to localize more and deeply understand the consumers over there. So in the end, it's all about generating a deep understanding in the different countries, in the different cultures, in consumer behavior, both in the new markets and the existing markets, to grasp new opportunities, but to also defend what has been created and built. But those new markets are not only about grasping new opportunities, it's also about learning about how business is done over there and how the future of business in general looks like. Three examples that it's also about learning. The first one is leapfrogging. If you look at most of those emerging markets and you look at things like technology and internet adoption, we see that they follow a different path than most of the Western countries do. In the West, we move from having no internet to having internet on PCs to having internet on smartphones. In most of the emerging markets, they skip the PC phase and almost immediately have internet on mobile phones. That's one of the reasons why, if you look at a country like Brazil, mobile internet adoption is pretty high, and let's say best practices among marketing people on social media and mobile marketing are pretty advanced. Probably a Brazilian marketeer can tell you more about mobile marketing and social media marketing than the average marketeer in the Western world. So that's the first thing. Secondly, they have the principle of reverse innovation. Reverse innovation means that you invent something or create something for emerging markets, but actually it comes back to Western markets. And a great example of that is what Unilever does for the laundry brands they have. In order to make their high quality brands affordable and products affordable for markets in China and India, for example, they offer smaller packs at lower prices, of course, that you can use to do laundry only for 1 week. That's a tactic that they also used in the markets in Southern Europe that are suffering from the crisis right now. Market like Greece, for example, they use exactly that same tactic to make the brand affordable for the middle class that is under pressure due to the crisis. And the third example is how innovation goes in those new markets. And it's especially fascinating to look at how companies innovate in Asia, in Southeast Asia. Everything goes fast, almost at the speed of light. They have the principle of innovation through commercialization, meaning that they don't spend months and years in labs to make a product absolutely 100% perfect. No, they create a product that is good enough, they bring it onto the market, and they make it better based on the feedback from the first consumers, from the first users, in 4 iterative loops. So 3 examples, I think, that show us that it's not only interesting to look at emerging markets from the perspective of grasping the opportunities, we can also learn different aspects of how business is done over there, but how business is done in general nowadays. So yes, it's a brave new world, but we also need to be brave in this new world, because there are a lot of opportunities to grasp, but there is also a lot to learn, and it will not be easy to, on the one hand, try to understand consumers in those new markets, grasp the opportunities, and on the other hand, to at the same time fight the status quo in Western markets. So to sum up this first bit of the presentation, yes, global appeal is still important. Yes, potential global scale is still important. But on the other hand, you need to know how you can localize things, how you can be rooted in the local culture, and we can learn a big deal from what's going on in those new and emerging markets. In order to really bring this all back to one definition, I would like to introduce universal brands as a term, and it's one that I prefer to use over global brands. What's a universal brand? Well, a universal brand is a brand that actually is built on a universal insight, and a universal insight is an insight or a cluster of insights that appeals to people all around the world. It's a insight or a cluster of insight that evokes the same aha, it's me feeling among consumers in different cultures. So that universal brand, global brand, is built on that insights, and that's the same everywhere. But on the same side, you are also creating a universe around that brand that is wide enough so that it allows you to locally adapt what you do, your marketing tactics, your whole marketing mix, while still staying true to that universal insight. Next to that, as being the brand leadership behind a universal brand, you also try to gain learnings from all around the world and transform that in best practices for different markets and different cultures. And if somebody in a country has gained particular knowledge and expertise in a domain because of the specific situation in his or her country, you have the guts to put that person in the global driver's seat when it comes to that particular matter. I will give an example to illustrate this definition. It's an example from a brand that does all of this pretty well. It's Johnny Walker. They have as a global or universal kind of insight that their brand is built on is that their brand, their product is all about ambition, and it's about keep on going to reach your ambitions. That's why, of course, their global tagline is keep on walking. And in Brazil, they have slightly adapted that tagline. There it's keep on walking Brazil. And again, what they try to do is play on that same thing, on we are ambitious, we want to keep on going, but they tweak it towards the local situations. Brazilians are pretty proud on their country and on the fact that they become one of those new economic superpowers on the one hand, and they also have a strong social culture, a strong we feeling. So that's why it's great to adapt the slogan towards keep on walking Brazil. On the same side, Brazil is a huge country with even cultural differences within the country. So even when it comes to brand and product activation, they did it slightly different in, for example, Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. In Sao Paulo, it was more focused on ambition when it comes to the economy, when it comes to professional things, while in Rio, it was more focused on being ambitious in what you want to achieve as a family, so more on the we-oriented side. So you see that localizing can go pretty far in those large and very diverse countries. On the other hand, a lot of mobile and social media marketing was used in the campaign. A lot of learnings were gathered there, and those best practices were spread all around the world to activate the Keep on Walking campaign worldwide, and the Brazilian guys got a high stake in, let's say, what was done in other countries around the world. So the Brazilians were put in a global driver's seat. So I think the universal brand definition sums up pretty well what we need. We need to find the optimal balance between the local and the global aspects, and we need to share learnings. So we already have said in multiple times during this presentation, it's so important to really understand markets, understand cultures, both in the new markets and in Western markets for different reasons. And Nelson Mandela has a great quote on why this is so important. He says, if you speak a language a man understands, you speak to his mind. If you speak his language, you speak to his heart. So it's very important to understand different markets, different cultures, to understand consumer behavior over there. So what's the ideal method to do that? What's a great method to do that? And on the same hand, on the same side, also a very efficient method to do that. First of all, what are the ingredients we need to deeply understand a culture or a market? Well, first of all, we need to observe people in that market quite a lot, and we need to talk with them. Figures alone will not help us to deeply understand a new market. Next to that, we will need to observe and need to talk with a diverse group of people, because most of those countries are pretty diverse in terms of social classes, in terms of lifestyles, in terms of attitudes. So it's talking with people, a diverse, larger group of people, over a longer period of time, because you need time to really get under the skin of consumers in new markets. It's you can compare it with going on a city trip for the weekend towards a new city that you have never been to, and living for 3 or 4 months in that very same city. You will have a totally different understanding of how things are there and how things go there. And a bonus element, I think, is that we need a method that allows us to be agile. If you look at what's going on in the world right now, everything goes pretty fast when it comes to business. So that's a bonus. So actually, we need a methodology that allows us to connect with a larger group, a diverse group of consumers over a longer period of time so that we can act and react pretty quickly on what's happening in the world of consumers and business. If we bring all of this together, what we end up with is a market research online community, customer or consumer consulting board. It's bringing together a larger group of people over a longer period of time on a closed online and moderated platform. We bring together between 50 and 150 people for a couple of weeks, months, and sometimes years, and we work with them to solve different kind of business issues. It can be just immersing into the market. It can be co-creating new products, services, campaigns, strategies. It can be in-home use tests like we do at the moment for Barilla, the Italian pasta maker in Russia, where we are doing in-home use tests of new pasta sauces and new kinds of pasta, and try to see how we can localize the Barilla products and brands a little bit more, or it can be just tweaking existing FMCG products or marketing platforms. Now the important question is, we know that we need to balance between global and local. We need to grasp opportunities. We need to learn. We know that a community can be a great method to dive into the skin of a new market, but what do we need to do? Do we do exactly the same thing from a methodological perspective in every country? No, we also walk our own talk. We have a global methodology, but we tweak it towards the local culture. The first and an important thing is that by default we run our communities in the language of the people from the country. Why? Because that makes that they will participate more intensively, more frequently, and share more emotions and nuances with us. It's not only that we do it in the local language, we also do it, or let it do, by a local moderator who not only speaks the language, but who lives already his or her whole life in the country and knows the market situation pretty well. How can we do that? Well, because we have a global community moderator network of 150 moderators in over 30 countries. So we can do run communities in over 30 countries. That's of course a great capability on the one hand, but the beautiful thing is that we also work together on a daily basis with those people to generate best practices in running communities in different countries. And based on that co-creation, we came to 5 dimensions on which we need to tweak our way of working in order to be really successful in different cultures. So yes, one methodology, but tweaked on those 5 different dimensions to be really relevant and to get the most out of the people and out of the community. The first one is in terms of what makes people participate, the motivation. What we see is that all around the world, the motivation to take part in market research online communities or consumer consulting boards is that people want to have an influence on the future of a brand, a product, or a company. But we see that to some extent, some markets are more extrinsically motivated than others. They value the monetary incentive more. That's the case, for example, in the USA and in markets in Eastern Europe, both for different reasons, but they want or they value a monetary incentive more. Another element is that you need to tweak what you give. So it's money in one country, it's different types of vouchers in other countries. In this case, PayPal doesn't fit all. When it comes to technology, most of the new and emerging markets are mobile, or the way they access the web is through the mobile screen. That asks for a different way of asking questions. It's more questions, but shorter questions. It's more easy to answer questions. It's more task-based. So it's a rethinking also of your topic guide. When it comes to that topic guide, 2 other aspects are important. And it has an impact on the way you ask questions. The first thing is that some markets like to talk more about the group than about themselves. That's the case, for example, in China. Other markets like co-creation a lot, like Brazilians really go wild from the first minute when they can come up with new ideas. And on the other hand, you have markets like Russia and Poland where people really feel more comfortable, especially in the beginning, if they can just give feedback on what already exists. So it's about tweaking again your topic guides to this kind of guidelines. When it comes to the role of the moderator, we see that a moderator in different countries around the world needs to behave as a social peer, as a like-minded person. But that's not really the case in China. There they expect the moderator to be really a professional researcher that almost has a scientific or academic flair around him or her. We also see that in countries like China and countries in Eastern Europe, we need to be more directive as a moderator and also almost show people where the next question is, while in countries in Latin America, we need to let them a little bit more free, otherwise they just run out of the community. So not only changing the way you ask the question, also the style you have as a moderator will be slightly different. And the final thing we need to adapt is gamification. We are firm believers of gamification. We have done research on it, and we have seen that gamified communities deliver up to 7 times more on-topic arguments. So we do that all around the world, but not to the same extent. For example, within Europe, in Spain, they really love gamification, and we add gamification elements, sometimes that are just there for fun, that have nothing to do with the topic of the community. On the other hand, in Germany, we need to keep it a little bit more relaxed. We just take away some of the gamification elements because in Germany they like gamification to the extent that it makes them perform better. So 5 ways to adapt your topic guides, to adapt your style as a moderator. Then what about the analysis? Well, in the analysis we see that if you do communities in different countries at the same time, then it becomes important to not only look at what they say, but also to at how they say it. And an example of this one is what we did for Red Bull in 18 different countries around the world. If we ask them what energy means and we only look at the what, we could almost say that it's exactly the same thing in all those 18 countries, 18 communities around the world. If you start looking at how they express themselves, the metaphors they use, the symbols they use to explain what energy means for them, we see differences. In the US, for example, they see it as fuel for their body, which is almost seen as a machine. And if we look at countries in Europe, they talk more about solar energy, wind, they talk more about natural sources of energy. So it's so important to not only look at the what, but also at the how, and to try to investigate together with your local moderator what that metaphor means within the culture. And you will uncover a whole new layer of understanding about that culture. But it's not only an analysis working together with the moderator to find deeper meaning. No, we also work together with the participants themselves. We ask them to help us with analysis. Because we will always have blind spots as researchers. We can be the best possible researcher, but we'll never live all the different lives of our participants. So that means that it's quite normal that in analysis we cannot understand every single bit of it. So why not asking a smaller group of participants to help us out with finding insights and meaning in bits that we don't understand fully. And that's exactly what we do. We invite in a community of 50 people, for example, 10 people to help us with the analysis, to help us to fill our blind spots. What does it deliver? Well, between 20 and 40% additional insights that are uncovered if we do that, which is of course great news, because most of the time the golden nugget, the golden insights, is in the 20 or 40% that we don't see and that your competitors don't see, because it's in our blind spot. It's something that we need to uncover together with the people in the community. Another thing that happens sometimes in those new and emerging markets, like in India, is that internet penetration is not that high. What do we do then? Well, we ask the community members to be our eyes and ears in the market and to help us to understand society. So, wrap up. What have we learned? Well, it's about local and global. It's about being universal, as a brand. It's about finding that balance. It's about grasping the opportunities, but also learn a lot from what happens in those new markets. It's about understanding the new markets because of the opportunities, but it's also about understanding and getting a deeper understanding of the markets in Western Europe and North America in order to fight the status quo. A great methodology to understand different markets and different cultures and different market situations due to their characteristics of market research online communities or consumer consulting boards. And if you want to run them well in different cultures, we need to adapt them on 5 different dimensions. We need to, in analysis, not only look at the what, but also at the how, and we need to, or we can, involve participants in the analysis in order to do a better job. So finally, what to take away from this as a person who manages a global brand on a global level, at a headquarter level, or at a regional level, or somebody who manages a global brand and from the perspective that you're part of the local team and need to implement the global strategy on a local level. I think Aker has a great quote on that, the branding guru. He says companies don't need global brands, they need global brand leadership. And that's, I think, what's in this presentation as well. The global brand leadership needs to come up with universal insight, needs to make the local team enthusiastic about the global strategy, and also needs to give them ammunition to localize it. So global community, very good, but you need to give access to the local arm of that community to your local team. A global brand manager or the global brand leadership also needs to make sure that learnings are transformed from one market to other markets in which it's relevant, and they need to have the guts to put people who have a specific knowledge in the global driver seat. And an example of where we actually had a global strategy is a community we did for PepsiCo, for the Ruffles brand in Turkey. There was a global strategy, and we did a local community in Turkey to make the local team enthusiastic about the global strategy, to show that actually there was a universal insight, that what was there on a global level was also true in Turkey, but we at the same time has given them the opportunity to localize the brand and product activation. So I hope you found this presentation inspiring, and I think it's all about don't go local, don't go global, go universal, and especially stay hungry to discover new